Hello, my name is Ted Gunn. I am the shop manager for CLAC Training Alberta. This is our welding training facility, and today we're going to be doing a video on doing your initial B test. I have with me Mr. Kelly Loren, the assistant manager here. He will be the welder extraordinaire. We are covering the initial B test for welders. The initial B test is the hardest and most difficult test of a welder's career. About 20 to 25% of all the guys who get into welding, or ladies that get into welding, will pursue their initial B. The initial B puts them into a better employment bracket and a better income bracket. To complete their initial B, they're going to be welding a 6-inch GET 80 pipe out. This pipe is severely tested. They are expected to be just about perfect. They start off with fit up. Once the pipe is fit up and they tack it, they have to show the examiner the 4 tacks. If they pass on tacks, they get to put the pipe in the 2G position, the horizontal, and then they get to start their weld test. Before they start, they feather their tacks to allow for a good seamless tie-in. They weld out the 2G section. Once that's completed, they get to show that to the examiner. If the examiner is happy with the 2G section, the pipe is turned into the 5G vertical and they will complete their route. When the welder is doing his initial B test, he has 3.5 hours from start to finish to fit the pipe, tack the pipe, weld it out to a completed cap. Once it's welded out to the completed cap and everything is visually inspected and approved, they have 1 hour to cut it into the 8 strips and grind them and have them ready for the bend. Now Kelly is going to be putting in his 2G section. He's going to go from this tack to this tack, and once he's completed that, it'll be cleaned up. He'll show it to the examiner, and then he will move on to the next section, which is 5G. The initial B test is performed on 6-inch GET 80. They're 4-inch coupons. You have 2 of them. Start off preferably with a 332 land. You grind that land on. Usually you clean it up with a file after. And recommended is a 332 spacing. It's optional to the welder. He can fit it up whichever way he wants, what he feels comfortable with. We recommend 332 land, 332 gap. If everything's going right on test day, you can go tack to tack with 1 rod. Less tie-ins you got, less hassles you're going to have. Once you've got these 2 sections of pipe tacked together, you have to take them out and show the examiner. If the examiner is satisfied with your tacks, you go back in your booth, set the pipe in the 2G, and you will be putting your root section in. He's looking to make sure that the tacks are complete, there's no undercut, and that they are somewhere between, say, 1/4 inch to 3/4 of an inch. You're allowed to have a 3/4 inch tack, and I recommend to welders that they take advantage and take the whole 3/4 inch so that pipe doesn't move once they start welding. Okay, now Kelly has completed his horizontal section. He would take this out and show the examiner the completed horizontal section of root. He is successfully tied in. He has a nice root there in the 2G. Now he will take this back to the booth, put it in the 5G. When he puts it in the 5G, the top part The end of that horizontal has to be at the top. It can be on either side, but it has to be at the top, his choice. Okay, Kelly has successfully done the second section of the pipe. There's 4 sections on a pipe. You're going tack to tack on 4 90-degree angles. He'll continue up here and tie into the horizontal section. The last section he's going to do is be from down here on the bottom up to the start of his 2G section. Okay, now Kelly has successfully completed his route. If you were paying attention, he went tack to tack. 4 rods, that route was in there in under 15 minutes. Very impressive. Most guys have a hard time with that. Nerves kick in, jitters kick in, and they're doing repairs before they can go show the examiner. In the world of welding, a welder should never show an examiner at any time, any test, the route until he or she is totally happy with it. Kelly will now take this pipe off and proceed to the examiner to show him the route. So now Kelly has successfully passed the route section. He has put the pipe back in the fixture, back in the position it was in. He will prep that 5G section for his hot pass. The hot pass, believe it or not, is one of the most important parts of a pipe joint. When you put the route in, you're welding well below the current range of that rod, but you are actually welding air. You're joining 2 pieces of steel together. The hot pass is what gels everything together. Kelly will be adjusting his machine. He will grind that 5G section, and then he will be putting the hot pass on the 5G. For the hot pass and the fill passes, he will be using 70-18, in this case 332. The route was put in with a 60-10 electrode, 1/8 in diameter. That's code for the Initial B. One of the things I'd like to point out that every time Kelly goes to strike the arc, he has the rod between his 2 fingers on his left hand. That's because when doing a pipe test, you're not allowed to have any stray arcs. If you have even 1 stray arc outside that weld zone, it's an automatic fail. When the welder's doing the test, to get to this stage, he should be at this stage within an hour to an hour and a half. It gives him plenty of time to complete the fill in the 5G, and it also gives him plenty of time to get that pipe in the 2G to finish that section off. Time is the biggest factor. You're always racing against the clock. At this stage, Kelly's going to start his fill process. What I'd like to point out to everybody is that to complete a welding test, any test, small hot beads is the key to success. Kelly did not use that as a fill pass, he used that as the bonding pass to tie that root into the sidewalls of the pipe. Kelly has successfully put in a hot pass on the 5G section. The 2G stays till the end. He will now be proceeding to put the fill pass on in the 5G. Okay, at this stage, Kelly has successfully filled that pipe. He is ready to cap. One of the things I'd really like to point out to people is he's got 4 passes in here, a root, a hot pass, 2 fill passes. He's not trying to stack too much metal in there where you could trap slag that when it hits the press, it'll push out and open up that weld zone. He has got a real good section here. He's all ready to cap. The cap is the cap. It's no fill or nothing. You don't want to be trying to stack a whole pile of metal in there at that time. Kelly is running 332, 70, 18 the whole way on this process. One of the things I hope people have noticed is what Kelly's been doing this, he's spent more time on the arc than he has on the grinder. Okay, now he has put some wagon tracks along the edge, make sure there's nothing trapped in there, and it's going to be kind of his guide for the edges to as he puts his cap on. He has also taken a wire wheel and cleaned the surface slag off before he starts welding. So during the fill portion of the pipe and the cap on the 5G, Kelly actually staggers his stops so that he can get a better tie-in on the 2G section when he ties into that 5G weld zone. And he'll show you at this time what we're talking about. Okay, at this stage, Kelly has shown the examiner his cap section of his 5G. It has been deemed successful. He will now take the pipe back to the booth. He will put it in the 2G, prep the 2G for a hot pass fill and cap. Okay, Kelly has got the 2G section ready for cap. Filling that 2G section and capping that 2G section is very similar to doing the horizontal plate for the CWB test. Kelly has put a wagon track along the bottom. Number one, it does two things. It takes any flux out of that corner that might be trapped in there, and it's his guide for that bottom pass. So now Kelly has completed the horizontal section fill and cap. On the horizontal cap, you have a choice of 3 to 4 stringers. You just don't want that bead width to get too wide. I'd like to point out at this time when you're capping the 5G, you can either run stringers or a single weave cap, your choice. The advantage for some people who run stringer beads on the 5G section is when they have a hard time controlling a large puddle, and the cap, appearance of a cap is a very important thing. So you got to show a real good cap. So some guys will opt to run stringers because it's less metal to hang on to in a molten state. They can get a nice even cap on there. When you're capping, you have a choice. You can use 332 filler or 1/8 filler. Kelly has chosen to do the whole pipe with 332. Most guys will run 332 for the fill and cap. The last thing you want to do is trap slag in there, because when it hits the press, if you got any slag trapped in there, it will push out, open that steel up, and you'll automatically fail. Doing your initial B, you can do it either with what they call F3, F4, which is a 60-10 root, 70-18 fill and cap, or you can do it in the TIG mode, which is an F6, F4. F4 being the 70-18 fill and cap, F6 being the TIG root. Once the examiner has approved the completed cap section of the weld, the examiner will lay out the 8 coupons that are going to be cut out of the pipe. It then goes in our shop, it goes to the saw where one of our apprentices will cut it into the 8.5" strips. Those will then be handed back to the welder, in this case Kelly. He would be grinding the cap off flush, the root off flush, deburr the edges, put them back under the fan. Once they've cooled down enough, the examiner will take the welder, the coupons, and proceed to the press for bending. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. I hope you have learned something from this video. We also offer Initial B courses, and we have a monthly test date. It's the third Tuesday of every month for ABSA, and check our website for up and coming courses and test dates.